Hello everybody. Welcome back. In the previous video we presented the proposal for a results policy or drug rationalization. Now we will move on to the finishes of our construction, starting with how a results policy should be financed. The financing of this proposal should not be one of the biggest concerns, since, again in the example of Brazil, the biggest difficulty is not the lack of money, as many want to make it appear, it is what to do with it. Few countries in the world have such a high tax burden. This is a fact. It is more than obvious that the biggest problem of nations is the mismanagement of public resources, not to mention corruption, this worst and most heinous crime that is constantly being fought worldwide. Firstly, the state needs to rethink its actions, reevaluate the spending of our money. Have your basic needs been met? Has it been spent where it is due? Is it a good investment to invest billions in public security, in clear ice operations to combat organized crime and drug trafficking, to solve a public health problem? Furthermore, a change of direction towards the new policy would certainly result in a considerable reduction in the prison mass, being directly proportional to the decrease in the volume of cases in criminal courts across the country. The gain for the state would be significant. Having done this self-criticism, it is now up to the state to explore its new activity, reversing the profit, which previously remained in the hands of traffickers, in favor of the citizen, the vulnerable. According to a recent UN survey, criminal organizations generate $3 trillion a year through drug trafficking and money laundering, around 15 trillion reais. C. In a results policy, the user must continue paying for the drug. It should not be given as a hands-off as many imagine. However, its value must be negligible, symbolic, having a pedagogical purpose. The intention is to give the user a feeling of loss, that they continue to spend money that they shouldn't have to spend, that something is not right. At this same point, as another source of resources, it would be something like the tax charged as a social contribution for intervention in the economic domain, due to the state's monopoly on the exploitation of this activity. Here again it is worth differentiating the recreational or occasional user from the drug addict. For the recreational or occasional user there should be no taxation, but only a negligible value for the drug, otherwise the costs will increase and the user will be aware that it is more advantageous to purchase the drug, again, in hands of traffickers. In relation to this individual, it will also not require other activities besides pads. In the case of drug addicts, they will also be subject to charging a ridiculous amount for activating the pads, but, obviously, without the same effect caused to the occasional user. However, there will be a tax liability who must bear the payment of the tax, that is, when, without assuming the status of taxpayer, his obligation arises from an express provision of law, a tax that will find its triggering event, precisely, in these other activities as specified in the previous video. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Follow us on the channel at Minister by Chance. When we talk about an obligation resulting from an express provision of the law, we are referring to the micro-victim, that is, their family members or any legal representative as a special curator. Responsibility needs to be shared, even in the pocket. If it is necessary to appoint a special curator, he will, of course, be automatically exempt from paying the aforementioned tax, as will those who prove the legal state of poverty in which the subject of the obligation finds himself, such exemption being on a specific basis, through an order from the administrative authority. The said order that gave the right to exemption may also be annulled or cancelled, as it does not generate an acquired right. In these cases of annulment or cancellation, preceded by a regular process in which the interested party's rights of defense are ensured, the public treasury is the one who must arrange for the creation of the respective tax credit, which will be increased by default interest, in addition to the applicable penalty, in cases of fraud or simulation by the beneficiary, or by a third party in favor of the beneficiary. Another significant way of obtaining resources is the countless possibilities for partnerships between government and the private sector. These partnerships can be direct and indirect. In direct cases, through permissions or concessions, complementing the provision of a public health service in CTs. In these cases, as well as in the collection of the intervention tax, any tariff should not be charged in cases of recognized poverty. CTs must be built with the cooperation of the union, states, municipalities, and individuals. Indirectly, through subsidies and tax incentives. A good example, in the case of an indirect partnership, is that which occurs between the public authorities and the OSIPs, civil society organizations of public interest. Likewise, another source of income, now a shared responsibility with the macro-victim, would be the approval of something like the controversial Brazilian CSS, social contribution for health. Within this new context, a tax that would benefit health in general, in addition to social security and social assistance, could also be important for funding a results-based policy. In Brazil, it is mirrored in the old CPMF, provisional contribution on financial transactions, but, unlike this one, it would be permanent, with different rates, with low-income employees being exempt. Finally, the state must look to society itself for a way to generate revenue. This can be achieved in different ways, such as donations made by any citizen, for example, through the National Anti-Drug website, collections from a social inspector, from NGOs, which has already been carrying out serious work in this direction, through volunteers, interns, social programs and campaigns, joint efforts, as highlighted in the previous video, carried out by students in the construction and renovation of popular housing in Chile, among others. This social support is essential for the success of obtaining positive results, starting here with the channel at Minister by Chance. Like, share, follow us.